So recently, I reread the entirety of Naruto, all 72 volumes. What was that like? Well, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. When I was younger, I remember absolutely loving the series, but as it went on and on and on, I sort of lost interest. I thought that was maybe due to having to wait months and months in between books or something, so I thought binge reading the entire thing would be a fruitful, fun endeavor. While it was nostalgic, it was not fun or pleasant for the most part. It was actually kind of a slog and something I will never ever want to do again, so I decided to sell the entire series. Despite my disdain for the series at this point, it still remains a very big part of my childhood, and as I handed the books into the hands of their new owner, I couldn't help but feel a little sad. Not wanting to end this breakup, I guess I could call it, on a sour note, I felt I wanted to celebrate the great things the series had to offer. Naruto in the end may not be a series for me, but Kishimoto undoubtedly penned and drew some amazing things in this series, and I'd love to share with you what I would consider my 5 favorite moments in Naruto. Before we get started though, I'd like to welcome you to MangAnalysis, where I do little reviews of the manga I've been reading. If you like what you see and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, maybe even leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. Oh, also, there will be spoilers in this video. Some of my favorite moments span from the very beginning to mostly the very end, so keep that in mind, I guess. The first thing about Naruto that I love and that will always stick with me isn't really a moment per se, but it's the characters. Now, I don't think all the characters were great, nor do I think they were all used super effectively, but most of them were awesome. Kishimoto did a super good job creating these awesome, diverse, versatile shinobi, and in every book I was hoping for new introductions to the cast. The very, very large cast. I think the issue with having so many great characters is you only have so much time to spend on each of them, especially nearing the end. You had all these amazing ninjas with so much potential, yet not enough time to properly delve into them as characters. Regardless, it's still some of the best I've seen in a series. I remember the payoff you would get when a character would slowly be introduced little by little as this great shinobi, only to have those expectations met when you finally got to see them fight. This happened so many times, and each time it was super delightful. Can't say the same for the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist though, who got introduced and teased in book 3 with continued hype throughout the whole series, only to have them finally show up in the end and have their entire battle off screen. That was a major letdown, but it is what it is. Some of my favorite characters in the series are Itachi, Kakashi, and Shikamaru. I feel pretty confident saying that these 3 could be some of my favorite fictional characters of all time. I think they were really well written and super interesting characters that only got cooler and better the more you got to learn about them. Speaking of Shikamaru, one of my favorite moments in this entire series has to be his fight against Temari in the Chunin exam. I absolutely love this fight. It's one I used to often go back and reread just for the hell of it or watch it on YouTube. Shikamaru hadn't really had too much screen time by that point and was only briefly shown fighting in the last round of the exam, which wasn't super remarkable. However, in his match versus Temari, he truly demonstrated why he had the potential to be an incredible shinobi and a great leader, which turns out is totally the case. This fight, in my opinion, is foreshadowing done right. He started as this lazy, low-key, mediocre lad, only to become an incredibly well-respected shinobi. I'm a huge fan of the intellectual archetype in manga, but I felt like adding the lazy gene to Shikamaru was a real neato thing to do, and something I feel like we've been seeing a lot more in manga and anime ever since. He was one of the few characters that I felt truly kept getting cooler and still had tons of time to shine and develop as a character as the story progressed. Even though he didn't technically win this match, we all know who the true winner was, and I think that was really, really cool. And I just remember really feeling like I wanted a moment of my own just like that one day, but I guess it never happened. You know what? That's okay, because that's the point of manga, baby, to make you dream and believe it. My next favorite moment in Naruto has to be when Pain attacks Konoha Village. Like, actually, that entire arc. First off, I really like Pain as a villain. He's a villain I remember feeling like what he was saying made sense. I didn't really necessarily agree with his methods, like genocide is never super neat, but his reasoning felt pretty logical, kinda. Slowly discovering what his powers were was really, really cool, and then all the people in the village dying was pretty nuts. Like, the whole thing was crazy. Even Naruto coming out all hermit mode was really, really sick. Not a super fan of Naruto as a character, but that's when he peaked for me. I truly felt like he was the embodiment of Hokage there, with everyone behind him giving him his support. It was a really rad fight and a really wholesome moment. Plus, we all meme about Naruto's speeches being his ultimate weapon, but the big talk he had with Nagato in the forest was actually really compelling. Nagato's backstory was one of my favorites in the entire series, and Naruto trying to understand him rather than beat him to a bloody pulp was really epic. In my opinion, Naruto should have ended there. It hadn't started getting stale for me by that time, and it truly did feel like, for me anyway, it peaked with the end of this arc. Next up, we have the emotional crux of this series for me, and that's Sasuke versus Itachi, something we had been promised since essentially book 1. The amount of hype going into this fight was off the chains, and I really do feel like it truly delivered. Like, beyond expectations. Too bad it was ruined by some Sasuke angsty emo shenanigans during the Great Ninja War, but whatever, we're trying to be positive here. The choreography of this fight alone was devastatingly sick, but what got to me was finally getting to know more about Itachi in his past. I think Itachi, like I mentioned before, is an incredible character, and I desperately wanted to get to know more about him. This fight gave me everything I wanted and more. The way it ended too was really wild, like so emotional yet very powerful. I will include the post-match where Sasuke gets to know even more about his brother from Tobi, just because it all feels like a perfect continuation. I think what really did it for me in this moment though was just how powerful Itachi was, and he wasn't even showing off his true full power. It was just such a powerhouse, and Sasuke was absolutely lucky to get out of there alive. Everyone says, "Oh, Sasuke, you are stronger and has more potential than your brother." And yeah, I guess in the end, he becomes like a god or whatever. But it truly never did feel as cool as Itachi. I remember reading this scene over and over again and then going on online forums and asking questions like, who would win, Itachi or Minato? And then giant debates would start and it was just the best. What a great moment in this series. And honestly, this might have just been one of my favorite moments in manga as a whole. Finally, my favorite moment in Naruto is the Zabuza arc. I mentioned earlier that the Pain arc was when it peaked, but in truth, I don't think it ever really got better than the Zabuza arc for me, which is kind of sad since it ends in like book 4 or 5. But seriously, that's when I knew I'd love this series, and I desperately wish it could have kept that magic going for me. Zabuza felt like the perfect villain, truly evil, really strong, yet vulnerable and redeemable. It was also a great opportunity to finally see what Kakashi was made of, and he did not disappoint. Add to that Haku and his super ice abilities, and you got yourself a perfect storm. Everything that happened in that arc was awesome. Naruto showing that kid what his ninja way was actually really cool and not overdone at that point, making it really truly epic. And then his foxtail powers coming out at the surface for the first time was incredible. Another great thing about that arc is when we finally got to see Sasuke use his Sharingan for the first time. Like, there was so much goodness in this entire arc, but the best was the emotion that came out of Haku dying, Zabuza's denial, Naruto's speech. Again, one of the few speeches that he had which truly felt cool. Zabuza's tears and his death, all of it was just so perfect. When Naruto and his friends finally got back to the village, it truly did feel like they had grown and they had changed in such little time. And I talk often about how I don't really like how characters can develop in a matter of a few days, but after what they had gone through in the mist, with seeing death for the first time, I truly did feel like coming back changed Shinobi made sense. So, as long as I live, I don't think I'll ever forget the excitement I had reading this for the first time. So there you have it, my 5 favorite Naruto moments, or aspects, I guess. Reflecting on these was really something I felt I needed to do. My last read through wasn't what I thought it would be, and it was a little disappointing. As we age, our tastes change, and sometimes things you used to love just don't hit the same anymore. It's unfortunate Naruto is one of those things for me, but that's just how it is. Looking back on what made this series great for me once upon a time was really fun, and now I feel like I can truly move on with it missing from my shelves. Now, what about you? What were your favorite moments in Naruto? What were your favorite characters? Any one of those shinobi you felt you didn't get to see enough of? Tell me in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this little video, and if you did indeed enjoy it, consider subscribing. This was MangAnalysis, and I'll see you in the next one.